Sharvin, he's done it! 4! Balotelli, Aguero! Cahill! Tim Cahill done it again! What a goal by Tim Cahill!
Hello everybody and welcome to the Premier League Nightclub podcast. My name is Damon and with me I have Woody. Woody, this sort of industry that we're in, it's getting ridiculous. I am half asleep right now. How are you dealing with these fixtures?
I'll tell you what, it's a bit of a stretch. This is now the third podcast in 6.5 days.
I'm struggling. You know, I was explaining to you that I fell asleep I missed like the best bit of the Chelsea-Arsenal game.
Which was the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, and then I woke up and De Bruyne was running through with ball at his feet against Sheffield and I'm like, where have the last 5 hours gone? What have I been doing? So I'm struggling, but as a key member of the nightclub, we got to push through.
Yeah, well, I don't have that problem. For people that know me, I'm actually almost nocturnal, to be honest with you.
100%.
I reckon I got 3.5 hours sleep last night. Woke up in the best mood, knowing that it's recording day, and I watched all of Arsenal Chelsea. And watched the start of I think it was Liverpool Wolves as well, but didn't see the controversy that surrounded the goal. Nonetheless, I stayed up for 1.5 games, so I was very proud of my efforts. 3 hours sleep.
You were up so you would have Did you wake up for Man United Burnley at 6:30 in the morning yesterday morning?
Yeah, 6:40. I think 6:45. But then I also watched the game before that as well, which I'm pretty sure was West Ham Leicester.
Goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, so that means I only got...
You were pretty much up for 24 hours. You were up for 24 hours.
Oh, thereabouts, yeah. And I had work in between as well.
Fire. It's the dedication we have here at the nightclub.
And just to quickly, before we kick off the episode, Damo,
yes,
I think that's the first episode in 3 or 4 weeks that you haven't referred to me as Woodra.
in the intro. No, I'm trying to spice it up. I had Woodra in my back pocket for later on. But, I will be calling you Woodra.
Bit of a shout out to the great Tony Modra.
I don't know where this nickname of Woodra's come from. I just jumped on it like maybe a couple of months ago and I just can't stop saying it.
It came out of nowhere and it's stuck.
It's definitely stuck. Anyway, Woody, obviously, huge games over Boxing Day, which we discussed in the previous episode, and some New Year's Eve games that we're going to discuss today. We've got Mitch Cleary coming on the 4th of Jan, so there'll be an episode there. Mm-hmm. Sam is coming back for that episode, so this is our last episode without Sam. So we're very excited for that. But I'm happy to just get stuck straight into a bit of analysis, bit of fun, and we're looking at our team of the decade later on in this episode.
Oh.
But until then, would you like to hit us with those quick fire results?
To kick off the round, Brighton beat Bournemouth 2-0. Southampton Crystal Palace drew 1-1. Everton got a very much needed win in a 2-1 win over Newcastle. Watford down a struggling Aston Villa 3-0. Tottenham drew with Norwich 2-2. Mourinho would definitely not be happy with that one. Leicester down West Ham 2-1. United finish off Burnley 2-0. Chelsea in a thriller beat Arsenal 2-1. Liverpool down Wolves 1-0. And to finish off the round, City down the Blades 2-0. Damo, what did you make of the round?
Yeah, no, some really interesting results, and obviously we've now seen the end of Manuel Pellegrini after that, again, disappointing performance from West Ham, 2-1 loss to the hands of Leicester. It was on the cards. He was on borrowed time, let's be honest. We spoke about it heaps in the last episode, how poor they were against Palace. They were poor again, and they've signed David Moyes, reappointed David Moyes. What's your initial reaction to that, Woody?
Well, we actually predicted it. Last episode, we said that Pellegrini wouldn't see out the year, which we were right about. And I think we did also say David Moyes was in line. So there you go, bit of prophecy from the nightclub. But look, I do agree with Moyes coming back. I think
Really?
I do, because when he was takeover manager, which I can't remember if it was for how long. I think it was
I feel like it wasn't a full season.
It was 4 months ish. And they played really well. He took them from, I think they were sitting 18th on the table at the time, and they were 1 or 2 points clear or in relegation, and they finished 13th. Okay. So he did pretty well with what he had.
I would put you in the minority of the way you're thinking at the moment, because I'm seeing a lot of West Ham fans aren't happy.
But he's only signed an 18-month deal.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that is the bonus because, and it's hard to say a manager only signing 18-month deal, seeing it as a bonus, but nonetheless, they haven't locked themselves into Moyes for too long.
Yeah.
And I think that's a plus, but then also it gives him enough time to see what he can do and maybe persuade the board to go buy some younger players which will replace the injured,
washed out guys.
The washed out injured guys that they've got, the Yarmolenkos, the Jack Wilsheres. So I think it would be interesting to see sort of where he can take them and where he can steer them. And I'm excited to see what he's going to do.
Yeah, I think it's a massive few months for West Ham now, and I'm really keen to see what they're going to offer. And I think I plan on talking about them a little bit later on in more depth. But yeah, if you were a West Ham fan, I think now it would be West Ham are the club that probably the least destination club in the league. I think I'd rather be at Arsenal than West Ham. But that's just my opinion.
No, I'd agree with that. And I think for West Ham looking forward, especially coming into the January transfer period, I think I don't know if they're in a position where they can be ruthless with signings.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, they've got so many bit part players and that are just below, probably above average, that they've got so many average players on that line that it's hard to find enough players to replace them.
And I think that's why the manager appointment's really important, because you need a manager who can get the best out of those players and not rely on squad list talent alone. Anyway, we should probably get actually stuck into our first game we want to analyse, Woody, because we could talk about West Ham for quite a while. And that was no doubt the biggest game of the round. Arsenal, I should say, were the home team. Arsenal versus Chelsea.
Now Chelsea can look to break. Here's Abraham, Mount and Willian up in support.
Willian's on.
Real opportunity here. Tammy Abraham, can he get the pass right? He's found Willian. Heavy touch has taken him wide. Cut back for Abraham. Can he get the shot off? Oh, yes, he can. And Chelsea have turned it round.
Chelsea turned this one around big time. And as I said, Woody, in the intro, I missed the best part of the game, which was the final 10 minutes. It was full of controversy, especially in the second half. It was a game of two halves. I
don't know if I call it a game of two halves. I say it's a game of the first 25 minutes and the last 65 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the way I put it.
Fair assessment. I just think one of the good things about the Premier League, obviously, is that any team can beat any other team on any given day. But usually we have, especially when these big clubs play against each other, quite often it's a case of there's a clear favourite. But I got the vibe going in that no one really knew what the hell was going to happen with this one, because both teams had a really poor month. Arsenal probably in the worst form out of the two teams, purely because Chelsea got the job done over Tottenham maybe about a week ago. But nevertheless, both teams are incredibly vulnerable. So to see goals in this one was no surprise.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think Arsenal now, looking at their position, they're just 6 points away from relegation and 11 points off top four. So it was sort of a game where they had to get a result. And for the first 25 minutes, they definitely looked like they were going to get the result. They looked like an Arsenal which was maybe a little bit resurgent. We talk about when managers first come in, the teams almost pick up in confidence because they know they've got something to play for. They need to play for their position, and they're not playing in stale tactics. So in that sense, the first 25 minutes was definitely Arsenal's.
Was that down to Arsenal's intensity and energy, or was that more of a tactical thing? Because we saw Lampard make the change after 35 minutes.
Look, see, I think it was definitely a case of just Arsenal's direct attack.
See, I disagree.
Really?
I strongly disagree. I think we're going to get stuck into Emerson and his poor 35 minutes, but I strongly believe that it wasn't a personnel thing. It was definitely a system thing. That's just how I saw it. Because once I almost felt that Lampard could have taken any of those defenders off and switched to a 4-3-3, and he almost could have brought on any other midfielder. I know Jorginho is probably one of the better players on the field purely because of the way he changed the game, but I think it was a case where Lampard couldn't really go wrong with who he substituted. It was what substitution he was going to make in terms of how he was going to set up, because Chelsea couldn't get it out of their back half for that first 30 minutes.
Arsenal were completely on top of them. But the thing is, I don't know if that's a tactical thing. I feel as if more so it was Chelsea's tactics lacking rather than Arsenal's tactics playing to their fore. Mm-hmm. And I somewhat agree with you there, but I also think that Arsenal were in a position where they could afford to be direct because Chelsea were playing more of a back five than a transitional 3-5-2.
Yeah, it was very similar in the fashion they started against Spurs.
Yes.
And realised, but it was almost the opposite case. Last time against Spurs were the team lacking energy, and maybe you're right, Woody. This time Arsenal brought the energy and intensity, so the system didn't work as well.
And I don't think Arsenal were ready for the tactical change. So that, in that sense, they probably didn't have a plan B.
Yeah,
Which was surprising considering
to be honest, it is Arteta's first home game in charge.
I know, it is hard. It is hard. But nonetheless, like, Arsenal's squad are probably one of the best in the league on talent alone.
Yeah.
If we're being real.
I think you can't really put the blame on Arteta, but from a player's perspective, a few players let Arsenal down, especially once the tide started to change Chelsea's way.
Yeah, and I completely looking at the game, and it was really frustrating to see. Like, you see the likes of Ozil came in and he was really resurging. He played well, but the likes of Lacazette continued the form in which he's been in the same vein for the last month, and he had a real day to forget, and he seriously struggled. He looked way too slow to take a chance in the first half, where he was probably given a striker's opportunity for a goal.
Yeah, if he's in form, he finishes that. He didn't even get the shot away. That's how slow he was.
Yeah, exactly, and that's probably credit to Aubameyang as well, because he played really well for the game and probably was the better of the, or 100% was the better of the two, no doubt. Mm-hmm. But yeah, back onto Lacazette. You know, he failed on numerous times to make opportunity of the potent counterattacks that they had, which sort of exposed maybe
didn't give
Chelsea's
the defenders a break.
No, he didn't, and they probably exposed the lack of experience in Chelsea's back four.
Yep.
By Azpilicueta, because Azpilicueta was actually pretty solid for the day. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, I think Lacazette definitely had a day to forget. He just went 63% passing in the forward half, won 50% of his duels, failed to attempt a shot, which came down to his horrific first touches in two or three moments for the game, where if it was for a good first touch, he would get an easy shot on goal, almost a clear shot on goal. But it was for the horrible first touches that they were blocked.
Well, we saw there was an opportunity late in the game where he pretty much, as soon as he got the ball on the edge of the box, handed it off to Pepe. But then you look at it and he actually created 0 chances for the game and had 0 shot assists. So his lack of confidence, leading to him giving the ball to a teammate, still isn't delivering results for Arsenal. Do you know what I mean?
I completely agree with you.
Like, the way he's handing off the ball isn't good enough either. So, you know, that's a real issue for Arteta now to find that form. He's been able to find, you know, temporary form for Mesut Ozil. So he'll need to switch Lacazette back on, because we know the type of player he can be.
Yep.
But one other Arsenal player I do want to look at is a player we talk about all the time. But it's David Luiz.
Sideshow Bob.
And to be honest with you, I actually almost feel bad sitting here talking about David Luiz, because if anything, we should be saying, at least for that first 80 minutes, he was solid. I thought it was one of his better games in an Arsenal shirt.
See, I actually disagree with you. And I do say it was probably his best display, but I think, like it has been the case over the majority of his career, and definitely towards the later end of his Chelsea days, the David Luiz moments, and like everyone knows what we're talking about.
Yep.
The head high challenges, the knee high studs, the defensive lapses. He can have 90 minutes, the blinder of game of his career, but he's the 3 or 4 David Luiz moments that completely undo his game.
Yeah, I think his mistakes are so much worse than your average centre-back, aren't they?
Yeah, and you have to question, is the hair clogging his brain? I don't know. I don't know.
Let's analyse the last goal. Okay, can we analyse the last goal?
Yeah,
because
for sure.
For so much of the game, it looked like Chelsea struggled to create clear chances. Okay, they dominated the ball, but you couldn't sit there and say, wow, Chelsea should have scored there too often.
Yeah.
But in the 87th minute, when they did score, Mustafi, who was thrown into the deep end after Chambers' injury, and Luiz, both of them backed away from Abraham on the counter-attack. That's typical Arsenal of the last decade.
Mate, they gave him
I had done it all day.
They gave him 20 metres of space.
It was so poor.
And the interesting thing was, Matteo Guendouzi, he actually picked up on it as soon as Abraham turned and Guendouzi turned on the counter. Guendouzi put both of his arms up, pointed at both Luiz and Mustafi, said, where the hell are you guys going?
Yeah.
They gave him 20 metres of space. They started running before Abraham had the ball.
Yeah.
Which was outrageous.
One of them had to go. One of them had to go in that situation. Maybe that's a case of lack of chemistry between the two, because Mustafi's very limited minutes this season. But nevertheless, that's just basic central defending. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, if you're an Arsenal fan, you just sit there and think, we've made 2 mistakes for the game and it's cost us.
Yeah, and looking at the follow-on effect from where Mustafi and Luiz were sort of positioned, it was a staggered defensive line. So what happened was Mustafi was too far away to get to Abraham, but Luiz was too far back.
And he was
to
worried
get to
about
Abraham.
Willian.
So Mustafi and Luiz weren't actually sitting aligned. Luiz was actually a bit further back than Mustafi, which causes issues when tracking men because the spacing is so different. Mustafi doesn't know whether to come across.
Yeah, mixed messaging between
and Luiz doesn't know whether to come forward. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, they both looked at each other dumbfounded and tracked back because they had nothing else to do. And that was just poor positioning. But then the thing is, Abraham was almost allowed to run 50 yards in order to...
Without any pressure on him.
With no pressure on him at all. And it came from the tracking defender in Guendouzi, who was the one that marked him down. But then by the time Abraham passed it off to Willian, it was done. Yeah. And credit to Abraham, amazing finish. His sort of the first touch.
The first touch is what got it.
And it looked simple, but it was a hesitated first touch, which he almost took half a step going around the defender and then came back with his first touch, which left, was it Mustafi? I think it was Mustafi.
Yeah, because
dead.
Luiz tracked Willian.
Yeah. And he went straight through Bernlino. And look, if we look at Bernlino at a game, your man, Damo, you picked him. You had him in your team of the season, rolling XI.
I don't look. I know he's made the most mistakes leading to goals since the start of last season
with 7.
Yes, but you could also make a case that the man who did score from his mistake shouldn't have been on the pitch. And that's where I want to finish this game analysis up.
Okay.
We're going to look at Chelsea and their change of system, and they brought Jorginho on. Now, as I said, he was good. He was probably changed the game, even though I'd make the case that almost any player could have changed the game the way Chelsea set up.
He got man of the match. And it was interesting when he came on. He came on for Emerson, who was playing left wing back and was actually at fault for Aubameyang's goal and had a pretty horrible first 30 minutes before he came off. Mm-hmm. He looked extremely defensive liable, but nonetheless, Lampard recognised that 3 at the back was not the way to go. Brought Jorginho in, played the metronome, and he was also a very lucky man. Should have come off with a second yellow card. But at the end of the day, he scored the goal, was man of the match, controlled the game, and probably delivered Chelsea the win, realistically, and the stability for the whole game.
Yeah. On the yellow card, first one, 100% there. Can we agree on that?
Yeah,
Greg Lacazette
100%.
Back. You're clear-cut yellow card if you've ever seen one. But you can also make the case that his tackle on Guendouzi in the middle of the pitch, it was a yellow card. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes about it.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of other way of looking at it, Woody, or is that it?
No, I think he also could have copped a yellow for when he was scored the goal and he pulled Torreira down.
So you think it was a foul in the build-up?
I think it could have been a foul.
I disagree. Strongly disagree. If he gives a foul for that, the game's ruined.
No, I think it could have been a foul. I'm not saying it was a foul. And Damo, I want to ask you this question because since Arsenal sacked Unai Emery, they've only taken 6 points from 8 games with the only win coming against West Ham. Do you think they should? What plan do you think they should have going forward? Going to January, going to the end of the season, new manager, struggling team, struggling strikers, struggling centre backs. Where do they go?
I think it's really important for Arsenal to stay rational in this situation. I can compare it to Lampard at Chelsea and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Manchester United. Okay, regardless of the fact that they're both they've hired a club past player plus legend.
Yep.
I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at the way they've set up around the manager. Chelsea obviously benefited from the talented young kids they had on loan, but I think you look at Manchester United 12 months ago, and they were pretty poor as well. Okay, maybe they have a little bit of a deeper squad, but I think it's really important that Arsenal now set up around Arteta. It almost doesn't matter if he's the wrong man. In 2 years, if they decide he's the wrong man, Arsenal's main objective should be to be in a better position then than they are now.
Do you think they should expect top 4 this season?
No. It doesn't matter about short-term results now. If they wanted short-term results, they should have gone after a bigger and more experienced manager.
Yeah.
It's time to build around Arteta, give him the foundations to be successful. If he's not successful, that's another kettle of fish. If you want to be successful, you need to set the foundations right. And I'm talking off-field, I'm talking board level. Arsenal need to get that right. So then if in 2 years' time Arteta's not the man, the next manager who comes in can still have the ability to be successful because Arteta at the moment is set up for failure. It's important you set him up for success.
Last question before we wrap up this game.
Yes?
Do they have any pieces in the squad that they can build around?
I think
that looking to the future may be staying more than just another couple of seasons.
I actually think Arsenal's midfield cops a lot of criticism, and obviously it's easy to talk about Aubameyang and Lacazette, but they're the players that you know, or maybe not Lacazette at the moment, but Aubameyang is going to get you goals. It's important they keep him, but I also think at 30 years old, almost 31, if he does go, I think it's not the end of the world for Arsenal. And you might look at me and think, come on, like he's clearly been their player.
You're daft, mate.
But I do think if you can set up around Guendouzi, Torreira, build these guys and maybe sign a midfield, make that midfield something special, okay? Yeah. Obviously, they have defensive issues, and I've pretty much covered every single line of the field.
Yeah.
Now. But I think if they can bolster that midfield and buy a strong defender, it's funny how one or two players can change a whole team. Okay?
Yeah,
that's all I'm going to say.
I agree with you. But I think, nonetheless, we should stick a bow in it because we've gone into that game and a half. Yeah. And it's really interesting we talked about because these are two teams that we probably haven't talked about for a few weeks.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to touch on where they sit at coming the new year and probably where they want to go at going into the new year as well, because two very different directions and two very different states. But nonetheless, let's keep rolling. Let's head into winners and losers because we've got a funny one coming up for you. And Damo, let's get stuck straight into it.
Winners and losers. Oi, did someone say winners and losers?
Sure did, mate.
Alrighty, so I'm going to start with my winner, and my winner is Brighton. They had a massive, massive win to kick off the round, the New Year's Eve round. It was your typical 6-point game. They got over a pretty poor Bournemouth, who, again, struggle against teams around them on the table. 2-0 loss, or 2-0 win to Brighton, I should say. Aaron Dennis Bergkamp-Moy scored his first goal of the season.
Oh, Jesus.
What a touch. What a finish. Good on him. His first goal for the season.
Messiah.
He loved it, and he was a man of the match. He was unbelievable, wasn't he, Woody?
He played so well. I actually tuned in for that game, and he was pulling strings. He was
everywhere, and it was good to see him not pushed out onto the left for once. He has been playing well there, but he spent a lot more time centrally, and he clearly benefited. Massive. Both teams were just above relegation. It's a massive win for Brighton. I think the way Brighton play, that I don't want to see them go down. I know I predicted them
We need the Aussie connection, mate.
Exactly, and I think it's been a good year for Brighton, the way they've been playing. Hopefully they can get some points, stay up. Woody, who is your winner?
All right, my winner of the week is Everton. So for the first time pretty much since the opening few weeks of this season, they're back in the top half of the table, and they had a pretty resilient home, a win away from home at Newcastle. Now, Carlo Ancelotti's first game in charge definitely hasn't enough time to implement what he wants from players, but the emotion and passion that Duncan Ferguson left at the club, I think, has been brought on by Ancelotti. It is not gone away at all. Passion is still there. My girlfriend's dad is still going to be very chuffed, I think, with the game. And that man, Calvert-Lewin, has scored 5 goals in 5 EPL appearances, as many as his last 28 appearances in the Everton shirt. He's on fire. Everton are looking good. Not looking good. I'm not going to jump on the train. No, by no means, because I think there's still good issues.
I think the start of their season will cost them long term for this year. Yeah, their season's a bit of a write-off, but it's all about building foundations.
I think they'll be dead centre mid-table.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Damo, who is your loser of the week?
Well, my loser, by no surprise, is the team we spoke about earlier on, and that's West Ham.
We roasted them last episode, didn't we?
Yeah. And look, as I said, it is the worst club in the league to be at right now. And I think when you look at where they were a couple of years ago to where they are now, it's scary how far they've dropped off. And my reason why they're my loser is not so much because they lost to Leicester. It is because of the appointment of David Moyes. I might be being harsh here, but I know it's only an 18-month contract, but I think it just shows a lack of ambition. It is a complete it's a complete twist of what they were trying to sell to their fans when they moved into this new stadium. European quality football. They're not going to get anywhere near Europe. David Moyes, let's be honest, he's been a failure, or at least okay, at every single club he's been to since he left Everton in 2013.
Gee, that's a bit harsh, mate.
I just think that Pellegrini on ability is their best manager they've ever had, and they've replaced him with David Moyes. And after their next 3 games, so once January's done, listen to these fixtures. Leicester, Liverpool, Brighton, Man City, Liverpool, Southampton, Arsenal, Wolves, Tottenham, Chelsea. They're cooked.
Oh.
Okay? They are cooked. I would... if they wanted stability and a manager to ride them through to the end of the season, David Moyes isn't your man. Bring back Big Sam.
Big Sam.
Woody, who is your loser?
A pretty stiff loser this week. I'm going to go the Wolves. But that's because they were in for a shout to grab points off Liverpool last night. And they're probably one of the only teams that has the actual ability to pull scalps off the big boys, other than the big boys. Now, Van Dijk, absolutely full pitch ping of a pass to Lallana, who shouldered it down for Mane. But wind back 15 seconds, Van Dijk actually almost handballed the ball, and I think it was a pretty clear-cut handball. But because I think VAR was put in place for Lallana's goal to be reviewed, they didn't review Van Dijk's handball. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it was really interesting going into the game as well because Nuno Santo benched Traore, Jimenez, and Doherty, who were the 3 goal scorers against City. Now, the commentator said, start of the game, it doesn't matter about who starts the game. For Wolves against Liverpool, it matters about who comes on and who affects the game. Now, I think that was extremely interesting because Jimenez, Traore, and Romain Saiss came on, so 2 of the 3 goal scorers. But, I mean, far out. Wolves were extremely stiff not to grab points, and if it wasn't for Liv VAR pool, I reckon they would have got points.
I think statistically they matched it pretty well with the Reds.
Yeah, for sure. They did. They had such a good game.
Alrighty, Woody, do we want to move on to our next and final game? And it's a relegation scrap again.
We've enjoyed talking about them, haven't we?
Yeah, I think, and Aston Villa come up a lot in these sort of conversations. So let's have a look at Watford versus Aston Villa.
Here is Etienne Capoue looking for Sarr! That'll do it for Watford! Villa furious, Watford jubilant.
I just think, Woody, you gave Man United your loser last week because you said Watford's win didn't mean as much as United's loss. Well, now they've won again, and they're off the bottom due to Norwich's poor form. They are within, I believe, 3 or 4 points of safety now.
Yeah.
Can you see them pulling this off? Has Nigel Pearson turned it around? Yes, I think so, because like I said, the Watford boys, similar to a couple of other teams in the league, are starting, similar to Southampton actually, starting to rally around the manager and rally around their team and build a unitary focus to get out of the relegation scrap. And I think that's really a credit to Watford. I think the only one that could probably take their place in the relegation scrap at the moment is potentially West Ham, depending on form, because I think Bournemouth and Southampton are showing really good promise at the moment, and same with Brighton. And I think West Ham are probably the worst out of the 3. Yeah.
Looking at the bottom 3, that could possibly go down. But yeah, look. I don't know. It's hard to predict.
It is hard to say. And remember when they drew 1-1 with Tottenham a couple of probably 2 months ago now.
Yeah. And
they coughed up a 1-0 lead late in the game due to some defensive and goalkeeper issues. Sam, of all people, actually said that just regardless of effort, you need to get results. When you're a team like Watford struggling, doesn't matter how well you play, if you're not getting 3 points when they're on offer, that's why they're going to go down. And Nigel Pearson, after the game, actually said, we couldn't afford to lose. Must win is something I'm not overly keen on putting into players yet. The important thing is performance. Okay?
Yeah.
So I actually think that he's contradicted himself in one sentence there. He said we couldn't afford to lose, but must win is not something.
He's covering his bases, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely covering his bases. And look, at the moment it seems to be working. His last 4 games, they've been competitive against Liverpool, beat Man United, I believe drew with Sheffield, and got the win on the week, a couple of days ago now, against Aston Villa. I just think what he's putting into his players is clearly working. He's giving mixed messages to the media.
Yeah.
But for now, it seems to be working. But let's have a look at why, Woody. Why did Watford...
Yeah. Mate, Watford came out absolutely flying, had created 2 decent chances, forced a save out of Heaton before Villa had even completed a pass. And that's credit to Watford and where they're sort of going as a team. They're playing much more direct. They're getting the best out of Troy Deeney. And with that being said, I think
his involvement back in the squad is massive.
Yeah, it's massive, and I think it's a lot more than just his play on the field. I think he's almost I want to say cultural hub, but he's probably the life and soul of that club at the moment as a player, and has been for the last few years. To see him back on the score sheet is a credit to I think the new system, and then the club getting around their players at the moment as well.
Well, he is a Birmingham fan growing up, so to score, he has a very good record against Villa. So four of his goals have come at Vicarage Road against Villa. He loves to stick it to the Villa fans in that away section. But the biggest thing for mine was, you said, Woody, he's no superstar.
No, he's a simple striker.
He is. He only had 22. Get this. He had 22 touches of the ball against Aston Villa. With those touches, he's had 5 shots on goal, 3 shot assists, created a big chance, and scored twice. I've seen players have 80 touches of the ball and not deliver half of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's very direct.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's what Watford fans want.
Yeah, well, he's not the fastest anymore, but by all means, I think the little things that he does well were the simple things, and that sort of goes, I think, unnoticed every now and then when you look at the flashier players. And we saw Ismail Assar bag a goal, and he's definitely a bit more skillful, but nothing to take the shine off what Troy Deeney did. He does the simple things well, does the basic hold-ups, does the basic passes, the basic layoffs that a good striker needs the foundations to be a great striker. By no means is Deeney an unbelievable striker, but he does the basic things well, and that's why he keeps delivering. All
right, Woody, I'm going to pose something to you here, because, again, we've picked a game to analyse here with a bit of a moral compass issue. Okay? And that came, of course, Murray Upper got sent off.
Yes.
And that was Watford were only 1-0 up at this stage, and it looked like, this was Villa's chance. You could see Grealish, his calves were pulsating. He was very, very excited to attack a 10-man Watford. But pretty soon after that, Matty Targett went down with what seemed to be an injury, although he was looking at the ball whilst he was down. He was sort of just sitting there watching the play unfold. Of course, from that, Deeney was played through and earned a penalty, and which he eventually scored. Where do you sit on this? Do you believe Watford should have played the ball out of play?
No, I think it was fine. I know it's unsportsmanlike, and I don't like it. But I think if you're going to get an edge up on a team,
you've got to be ruthless.
You have to be ruthless, and who gives anything about the moral compass of the game? To be honest, I know it means so much in the context of the world sport and whatever, but they're in the results business. Let's be real. They're in the results business. And for these two teams, they need every single bloody result they can get.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the thing that makes me feel completely fine with it is that Villa tried to attack Watford and then turned it over, and then were opened up at the back due to the injury.
Yeah.
So my thing is, I think the moral thing should be, if you're not willing to defend, then you shouldn't be willing to attack either.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
No, I do agree with you.
And the comments after the game, it made me feel sick, to be honest. Just the attitude towards Watford and what they'd done. Do you know what? If the team I support did that, I wouldn't have an issue with it in the world, and I'd be disappointed if my team passed the ball out.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think, if anything, I think Villa fans are almost scapegoating the poor performance they put in.
Oh, 100%.
They were playing 10 men, and they still conceded
over half an hour.
They still conceded 2 goals.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to see where Villa are at the moment, because we slated West Ham last week. And I think it's about time we slate Villa as well.
Do you know they have not kept an away clean sheet since January 2016?
Disgusting. And I think if we're being extremely realistic, they have broken McGinn. I know he went down with an unfortunate injury, but they've broken him. They've run him into the ground, and they've done that with Jack Grealish as well. Consistently, he's the only player moving forward. They need Premier League players to stay up. They lost Tammy Abraham, and who did they replace him with?
Wesley.
Slay Daddy. And he hasn't done anything.
I know, and he was denied by Ben Foster with a really good save in the first half, and it was an incredible save, but he headed it. You just need to be a little bit more direct with the header, and it would have gone in. But Woody, your man Tyrone Mings has been now missed 5 successive games with a hamstring injury, and clearly Aston Villa, look half the team they are with and without him.
Yeah, and I agree. And Damon, I actually messaged you this last night because I was looking up the biggest transfers of coming into the season, and I saw Mings only came for 20 million. Right, and if you're buying a player of Mings' quality for 20 million, you're having a bloody bargain. And one of the first teams
went for 44 million.
Yeah, well, there you go. But seriously, looking at Villa as a squad, Mings is probably the least of their worries at the moment. They need 200 to 250 mil to buy the players they need to make a consistent run in the Premier League and get out of the consistent relegation scrap.
I think, they're better than an 18th place side.
Yeah, and we love watching him play, but far out,
the last 2 months have been abysmal.
There's no more excuses you can make for them.
No.
Grealish is their only player at the moment.
You can tell he's tired.
He is tired. He does everything.
He can the third goal that went in. We'll just wrap this one up with the analysis of the third goal. Grealish turned the ball over in midfield, and then as soon as the ball went in, he went up to the ref fuming, saying he was fouled. VAR had a look, and in all honesty, Jack, you've had a great year, but
come on, mate,
that was pathetic.
Yeah,
there was barely a touch, and he went down after he'd passed the ball away. For mine, as a captain, I thought it was really poor.
Damo. 3 words.
Here we go.
Question.
Yes?
Dean Smith out?
I think the style they played for the first few months has earned him a little bit of time. And I think it's not getting to the point where, all it takes is a win for Villa, and they could sit about...
Mate.
16th, I think it is.
Nah, but I'm not buying that. They're playing relegation rivals. They've lost 3-0 to Watford just then, conceding 2 off a red card, right? They lost 3-1 to Southampton, right? They're losing to relegation, competitors.
Yeah.
That's the thing as well. So I don't see how, I don't know if he's out because they beat Norwich, of course, but realistically, they need to be winning every single game to stay up. Against the relegation relegation battlers.
I do see that. Yeah, I think the last good performance I saw out of them was a 2-2 draw at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
If you can do that, I know we've talked a lot about the state of
Grealish actually pulled them out a bit as well in that game as well.
Exactly. We know where Man United are at, but nevertheless, if you can score 2 at Old Trafford, you should be able to score against a 10-man Watford.
Yeah, I agree.
I think wrap this one up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. And if they lose against Burnley, I can see Dean Smith leaving.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. You that. Because Villa play a much nicer brand of football.
Of course.
Than Burnley
Of course.
do. So that's a real test to get the results. Which team's going to get the result in that? The fancy football or the ruthless football? We'll find out next week. All right, Woody, it is time to get stuck into a very topical thing at the moment. We've seen lots of different media platforms do it, so we're going to get stuck into our own, and that is the Premier League Team of the Decade. Y'all ready for this? All right, so Woody, I want to do it position by position. Goalkeeper. Surely it has to be David De Gea.
I've also got him down on the team sheet. I can't see... I think out of the players that have stayed in the Premier League for that long, look, probably his rival would be maybe Petr Cech. But then Petr Cech hasn't been there the last 3 years. I think Dave has been the best keeper in the world probably
for 2015
through to 2017.
Yep.
So with that being said, I think he gets the nod. Petr Cech.
He's got the league titles as well from the start of the decade.
Exactly.
That probably puts him over say Alisson, who's only really been around for 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
Or 2 actually. And then you look at a guy like Edison, who's won 2 league titles, but again, he's only been here for a few years.
Yep.
So I can't really justify anyone else other than David De Gea. And many would say and agree, where would Man United be without David De Gea, especially during those really, really poor years?
Completely agree. Now, Damo, you've gone for a 3-5-2, so 3 centre-backs.
Yep.
Give us all 3.
My 3 centre-backs are Virgil van Dijk, Vincent Kompany, and John Terry. Now, when I sat down to look at this, I was like, okay, who are my centre-backs going to be? Van Dijk's a modern success. John Terry's obviously the old-timer success. And Vincent Kompany was the large performer for a large part of the decade. And so I was like, okay, well, I couldn't feel that I could leave any of them out. So that's why I've gone with the 3-back. And now, Woody, I know you've gone for a little bit of a different take, but who are your 2 centre-backs?
I've gone for a 4-4-2. So I've gone the 2 full-backs in there as well. But the 2 centre-backs I've gone is Vincent Kompany and John Terry. So I've left out Van Dijk.
Okay, are we happy to lock in John Terry, who won 3 league titles during this decade, who many might actually forget about, and Vincent Kompany, of course, has won 3 as well.
Nonetheless, he scored probably one of the goals of the decade as well.
4 league titles, my apologies.
4 league titles. Scored one of the goals of the decade to clinch City's title last season.
Of course, scored in the Manchester derby back in 2012, which put City in the box seat to win their first league title in how long?
Reeks of greatness.
So, yeah,
Reeks of greatness.
I think we just have to lock Vincent Kompany in there, and I'm happy to lock in John Terry based on just his stature and what he did for Chelsea at the start of this decade. Now,
yeah.
who are your fullbacks?
I've gone Azpilicueta and Zabaleta. That's very much due to probably a lack of prominent left backs in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think if we look at title-winning teams, obviously we look at the title-winning teams over the years to see who played that left-back position. I see Marcus Alonso play as a wing-back when Chelsea were really successful, but for mine, that was his only good season.
And even that, he played more advanced than he did left-back.
Yeah, so I think I look at your Mendy's, your Zivchenkos. Andy Robertson has only been a phenomenon for maybe the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I just struggle to find one. Patrice Eva, maybe from the start of the decade.
I think I'd have to go with Azpilicueta because obviously when Andy Cole left Chelsea, Azpilicueta sort of filled that gap for.
He's Mr. Fix-It for Chelsea for so long.
He is, and he plays all across the defensive line, and I think that's the only reason I can put him as left back is because he has the versatility to play there and has played there. And then also Richard Baylor said that last week. He's played through the last 10 years. Left back, centre back, right back in every single formation possible. So I think for me, he's that shout. And then Zabaleta as right back, I think his stats and his titles, speak for themselves realistically. Are you sort of, do you want to switch?
I'll think out loud here and say I'm actually willing to go with the 4-back and pretty much go with your back 4.
I'm actually willing to compromise, go 3 at the back, and put Azpilicueta over Van Dijk.
Ooh,
it's an interesting prospect.
Okay, I'm actually willing to do that.
Yeah,
I think yeah. Okay, so our back 3, we'll go the back 3: Terry, Kompany, and Azpilicueta.
Easy,
done.
Yep.
All right, now moving into midfield, I will say that it's a 3-5-2. So the left and right mids, are we saying they're attacking players? I think. Well, that's just the way I want to look at it, but maybe you'll have a different
I'd say borderline we have to go for a 3-4-3. But we'll see. We'll fix the debate when we go through the midfield players.
Okay. How many central midfielder players do you have?
Well, I have 2.
Okay.
And I'll list them off. The first one's Kante. I think the role he played in Leicester in 2015-16 says enough for itself. Then to come to Chelsea and do the exact same thing, he's probably in the best World 11 at the moment.
Yeah, and he's been performing since 2015.
Yeah,
it's impossible to leave him out.
Yeah,
I've got him as well.
And then the other centre mid, I've had to spurn a lot of players for this one, and it's really aided me. I sat there for a long time thinking, who the hell is going to partner with Kante? Now, and I've looked at someone who can not only play attacking midfield, but defensive midfield, central midfield, box-to-box, deep lying, behind the striker, the versatility. And that's a great man, Yaya Toure. And I think he's probably, I'd say maybe the best African midfielder of all time.
Okay.
I think that's probably a fair shout. And I think a lot of people would probably agree with me. And the reason why I've gone with Yaya Toure is because his most impressive season undoubtedly came in 2013-14 when he scored 20 goals from midfield and added 9 assists. Single-handedly probably dragged City to another league title. But then, of course, one season doesn't make a player. Over the course of his City career, he scored 79 goals and grabbed 50 assists over 316 games. And he completely changed the way he played from when the holding role he had occupied at Barca. And he came in, played everywhere for City. Played attacking midfield when needed, played central midfield when needed, and even played in the deep lying, similar to his role at Barca. For me, I think he's one of the best midfielders since the 2000s in the midfield, in the EPL, and definitely, for me, probably a mainstay in Team of the Decade. I don't know if you agree with me.
See, I've gone with Steven Gerrard.
Fair shout, though.
Next to Kante.
Slippy
And
G.
look, the lack of a league title actually hurts him. Just based on the reasoning for a lot of the other players we've picked in this team, I think the league titles has to be taken into consideration. It would be ignorant for us not to. And look, you talk about the season that Toure had, especially in 13-14. You know, Steven Gerrard probably once 2015 hit, fell off a cliff a little bit. He never really got into that double figures in terms of goals. Obviously finished up at the end of the 15-16 season. I'm actually willing to give you Yaya Toure here.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Really?
I'm not going to put up too much of a fight. I think both of them pretty much peaked. Not so much peaked, sorry, but from 2010 to 2015 was their time. Mm-hmm. Both pretty much stopped at the same time. And Gerrard's probably a better player overall in his career, but I just think in this decade, Toure offers more to the team than Gerrard does.
And I think it's an interesting conversation to have, I guess, in the context of the greatest of player, and of course a conversation for another time because it's a lengthy debate. How can you consider a player to be one of the best ever in an EPL decade if they haven't won a title?
Yeah, that's always going to be the debate with Steven Gerrard, isn't it?
It's rough to say, but like no one's knocking Gerrard's credentials. But then if you look at the players of similar ilk in the decade, they have 2 or 3 titles to their name. And at what point do you say that takes them above someone? I don't know. And it's
a tough call.
It is maybe something that we have to weigh in debates, and maybe if we get guests in, we have to ask them as well.
Yeah.
But moving on, I think this is where we hit the point where we have to decide whether this is a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3.
All right, well, have you got David Silva in your team?
I do.
Where?
Right mid, in a 4-4-2.
Okay, see, I have him as an attacking midfielder in a 3-5-2, behind my 2 strikers.
Okay.
In right midfield, I have Raheem Sterling. Now, Raheem Sterling's really interesting.
Okay.
You look at Sterling and think, he really kicked on maybe 2-3 years ago and has played a big role in City's title-winning seasons. But people sometimes forget he was a big player in 2013-14 for Liverpool when they almost won the league with, let's be honest, a pretty average team. Brendan Rodgers got that team firing, and Sterling was a big part of that. So I think,
correct me if I'm wrong, it was a Suarez, Sturridge, Sterling front three?
Yep, that was what got the job done a lot of the time for Liverpool in that year. And I think at Sterling's age at the time, I believe he was about 17, 18. Now, obviously, 7 years on, he's won 2 league titles. Player of the year, I believe, or just behind Van Dijk last season. I think it's impossible to leave him out, so that's why he's in my right midfield. Who have you got on your left, Woody?
I've gone Eden Hazard, and I can't see how anyone could pick him.
I've got him as well. So do we want to lock him in on the left? No matter what formation we play?
Yeah, for sure. We have to, yeah.
We'll lock him in, okay. How many strikers do you have?
I have 2.
I have 2
it's a 4-4-2.
Who are your strikers?
So I've gone for Harry Kane and Sergio Aguero.
I've gone for them as well. So we can lock those in. I mean, Harry Kane's been absolutely phenomenal. 134 goals in 192 appearances. Aguero, obviously, 4 league titles. That famous goal against QPR. He's in our intro, so we pretty much have to have him in this team. So now here comes the bit of the issue. It's a case of we've got our 2 holding midfielders, Kante and Toure. We've got our left-sided player, Hazard. We've got 2 strikers. Now we've got 1 position to fill.
Do we go for the winger or the extra midfielder? That's what we're going to choose. Mm-hmm. Now, for me, I think that we could borderline... I reckon we should go for the extra attacker. Actually, no. I'll go midfielder because if we put Silva and Hazard in the midfield, we're essentially adding 2 more attacking-minded midfielders.
Okay, so...
Yeah. So that... I'd actually give you a shout and say that Gerrard should be in that midfield 3.
Oh, we're going back to Gerrard, are we?
Well, the thing is, if we're looking at as a midfield 5, we've got Hazard on the left, Yaya Toure, Kante, Silva on the right mid, and then we have 1 more midfield spot with Kane and Aguero sitting up front.
See, I would move Silva into attacking midfield and chuck Sterling on the right. Because I feel Kante and Toure offer you enough defensively.
I feel as if I had known we've gone for a 3-5-2, then I probably would have changed my XI. I probably would have honestly chucked Suarez in there for a debate as well. Suarez and then also Gareth Bale.
I think because Gareth Bale left in 2013, 14.
Yeah.
I just think he hasn't played long enough, and you can't keep Sterling and Hazard out. If we're putting in wingers,
In those 2 years, he won PFA Player of the Year and also Young Player of the Year.
No, I just refuse to give it to you, Woody.
Okay,
I refuse to give it to you.
All right, fair enough.
I have to have Sterling and Hazard in there. I think they both deserve
Okay,
to
so
be there.
lock it in for 3-5-2.
That's just my. I'm going to bully you here and say yes.
All right, fine. We'll go for the 3-5-2. Quick recap: David De Gea in goals, Company, John Terry, Azpilicueta, the three centre backs.
Yep.
Starting from left mid, we got Hazard coming into Yaya Toure, coming into Kante, coming into
And on the right, Sterling.
and then up front we got David Silva, right wing.
No, David Silva up top.
Oh, David Silva up top. Sorry,
Cam.
At the cam. Then we've got Kane, and then we've got
Aguero.
Sergio Aguero. That's a pretty formidable XI.
I think we're chucking this Premier League Team of the Decade up on our Instagram, aren't we, Woody?
We have to.
And where can they find that?
At Premier League Nightclub on the Insta.
And if you want to see it on the Twitter, which I'll be posting it as well, at PL Nightclub, go check it out. We've got some really good stuff. We've got Mitch Cleary on next week. Woody, are we happy to wrap this one up? We're going to get that Team of the Decade up. People can debate it. If you really want to have some input, feel free to comment. We'll hopefully mention some opinions on the next episode. Woody, I'm going to say Happy New Year to you and Happy New Year to everybody listening. Hope you have a great night, a safe night as well. And make sure, we want them to have a safe night, Woody, so that they can listen to the next episode.
Oh, 100%. We can't lose our viewers to the partying.
Yeah.
I mean, the nightclub is tame, but the nightclub is filthy at the same time.
Exactly. Leave the trash at the front door, but make sure you pick it up when you leave. That's what you got to...
Damo, just before we jump off the airwaves, I have to say congratulations on a really successful year for the Premier League Nightclub podcast. We've gone from zero to a lot more than we expected come the new year.
Yeah,
and I think we've almost exceeded our own expectations. We've got some really good feedback, and what we're really looking forward is to a 2020 and hopefully the continuation of the nightclub and the rapid growth that we've continued to see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're trying to have a laugh as much as we can. I know sometimes it's important to discuss the serious things in football. Sometimes it's important to discuss the funny side of things in football. And we try to mix that up. Maybe in the new year, Woody will get some New Year's resolutions going for the nightclub, and we might have them on for the next episode.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
If you want an idea of what's to be expected throughout next year, listen to that first episode of the new year, and you'll know exactly what's going to happen.
Bang.
All right, let's wrap this one up, Woody. It's been a pleasure. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everybody. Have a good night. See everybody.
See you guys.